All right. Here we are on Oddcast. I know it's kind of a weird thing. Hopefully you guys can hear me. I hope you could hear me. Um, Shoot, waiting until cats come up in here. Um, yes, cool. Right on. Is it going?
And
Hey,
there I
what's
am in the
cool, man? Cool. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Just trying to get
How's life
things
treating you?
situated technology wise here.
Yeah, technology's a trip, man. Like, shoot, especially this little cell phone is something funny. I hope my voice ain't coming out cricket because this thing is kind of weird.
Oh no,
Uh,
you're good. You're good. My issue is that I was on I'm on my tablet now because my laptop isn't doing me justice right now. I'm
oh
actually sitting my tablet on my laptop right now.
man, well shoot, man. Like, what's the weather like over there? It's got to be cold, right?
Yeah, at this time, I mean, yesterday it was like 76 degrees.
Dang,
Today it's
even on the
40.
East Coast.
Well, I thought I was. I mean, let me see what was the weather. It's 42 now.
Wow.
It's 42 now. So it's back to normal. And but for a moment we all pretended that we were in LA.
Yeah, our privileged weather, right?
Yes, yes. I mean, for us it was like springtime, the trial run. The best thing about yesterday is that I realized I need to get the air conditioner fixed in my car.
Oh Lord.
So I'm gonna have to do that before I really need it. And I mean, global warming has its benefits, I guess.
Yeah, it's a trip though. Like, I mean, we're finally feeling a little bit of freeze out here, but for the most part, it's been hot out here, man, in LA. It's kind of weird,
Well,
like,
see, I think this is the way. I think the way climate change works is that it gives us all a little bit of what everybody else is having. Because I heard that Texas had a snowstorm
what?
yesterday, and we sitting there talking about can we go to the shore?
Yeah, you're in
So
Jersey, right? Jersey, so that's like the Jersey Shore, man.
yeah, the Jersey Shore, you know where Snooki and all them hang out or hung
Yeah.
out.
Is it really like that? I only seen that show a little bit, man. Like,
Uh, It's a reality show, which means it's not
oh,
reality.
that's hilarious.
Reality
Well,
shows are not reality, ladies and gentlemen.
I know, right? That's totally true, by the way. Well, I'm gonna introduce cats, like, cause I'm mad honored that you even. I mean, man, you went from Rachel Maddow to freaking MSNBC, Montel Williams, and in magazines like The Wired to being on Oddcast with
Hey,
me.
no way to stop me, Mom. I'm on the way up.
That's right, man. Thank you, man. I really appreciate this. Like,
It's-
seriously.
see, see,
And
see. This is one of the things. Like, I mean, all the stuff that's going on with me over the past two some odd years, it's kind of like it's still very new to me. And
mm,
because beforehand, it was just like me and a couple other people that have just been working on all this stuff without anybody really noticing. And that means not us getting the props. I mean, we weren't looking for props. We were just looking to get some work done.
yeah.
And now everybody is paying attention. Now it's not just some right wingers who want to just throw fat jokes at me all the time.
Hmm.
Now it's people saying, okay, we can get something out of this. I mean, unfortunately, it took a calamity like Donald Trump becoming president for everybody to do it, but it is what it is. So,
Yeah,
I'm really appreciating the fact that people really want to start bigging up people like myself and other Antifa that's out there doing this kind of work. So, I
yeah. I
mean, it's
have to. I have to ask for a lot of the people that don't know. Um, Tell us about what you do. I can tell. I want to say it, but I'd rather you say it because I think a lot of people don't understand. I mean, the term doxing. To be honest, I'd never even heard of that term until I actually read about what you were doing. I knew what you were doing, but I didn't know it actually had. I always thought it was called watchdog. But what? How do you define the term doxing?
Well, it's funny because I think when people think of doxing, they just think of just some activist putting somebody's name and address on a website and whatever other information they have about a person to just basically intimidate them or freak them out,
Mm,
and worry that people will come after them. That's not why we do it. The reason why we do it is because we're reporters by vocation.
mm,
And it's just another way to get information. And it's information that is about some folks that want to try to do us harm. I mean, whether it's legal or not, they want to try to do us harm. So I say, hey, we're letting you know just who it is that's causing us grief, so we won't have to approach things in an esoteric way. And when One People's Project started, there was this thing where anti-abortion activists will publish the names and addresses of abortion providers, and they freaked out, and
mm.
they tried to take those anti-abortion activists to court. Unfortunately for them, the courts ruled in favor of the anti-abortion activists, saying that was a form of free speech. But
Mm.
unfortunately for the anti-abortion activists and anybody else in the right wing, that was our cue. We said, okay, that's just another tool we can use. That's just another thing that we can use to basically advance our mission of just getting all that information out there, all the information that we need to get out there.
One of the funniest things that I've seen, and actually the first time I actually saw you was on Jesse Lee Peterson, and I'm like,
Oh,
wow,
good grief, you saw
I was cracking.
that.
I mean, it's one thing because you don't really see. I mean, there's you and Yvette are the only ones that I see probably out there in the media that most Antifa kind of got their face covered or whatever, but for the most
Uh-huh.
part, it's like when I saw that, I'm like, man, dude, because Jesse Lee Peterson's kind of out there anyway, man. He's kind of
Oh,
he's kind of like I don't understand him, dude. Like as a black man, especially calling Trump the Great White Hope and all this BS, and like not
oh,
understanding why Antifa is even around. Like how on. So like that was the first time I saw you, but like the one thing that I wanted to clear up, a lot of people have a misconception about Antifa. um what do you think the biggest misconceptions about Antifa is? Antifa, for all you guys don't know, Antifa is anti-fascist.
I think the misconception is that we're fascists because
Yeah,
because
exactly.
they get caught up in all the rhetoric, or rather, in all the propaganda that's coming from the people you shouldn't be getting propaganda from, and they get this notion that somehow we're the bad guys, and I'm kind of used to that because we anytime somebody is trying to go after this particular element, this hate politics, there's always some liberal out there that tries to run defense for them
Yeah, I
because they
don't
want to try
understand
to
that.
keep things. There is a complacency, not a complacency. I would say they get comfortable to the point that and stabilized to the point that even though they may agree, and I'm just trying to, I'm being charitable when I say this here, even though they agree with what it is we're fighting for, they know that we are creating some sort of an instability that threatens the things and the foundations that they have. So, in a fit of paranoia or cowardice, they get between us and the fascists, and they will spend more time fighting us than they will them, and they're the ones that actually want to try to take everyone's rights away. I
The
mean,
thing that oh, I'm sorry.
I I would think that I would think that people would have learned their lesson from the past 50 years of reading Letter from a Birmingham jail, that that doesn't work.
Mm,
Sometimes, I mean, not even sometimes, all the time, we are people that evolve. and by people I mean all of us here, not just
Yeah.
me as a black man or what have you. We are a society that evolves, that progresses beyond that which we have learned.
Mm.
And anytime any of us try to do that, there's always going to be some pushback from some folks who aren't sure whether or not we should rock the boat. But do you know what that makes those liberals that do that in this regard? Conservative
Yeah, and not only conservative collaborators. I don't
and
play that.
collaborative.
They are
Yeah,
collaborating with these devils.
yeah.
Uh-uh.
And by the way, I had a lot of fun on Jesse Lee Peterson, by the way. Because I
He's a
had a
nut.
ball. See,
Is he really
he's one
like
of those.
that, or is that just a hustle like Wally George? Like,
I
is
think
he
it's a
like
hustle. I think it's a hustle, but he's been hustling like this for over 30 years,
that?
and
Man,
it's a concern because the hustle also includes a a total complete hatred of women who want to advance themselves beyond the kitchen.
yeah,
And
it's kind of dangerous too. I mean, he's big upping like Richard Spencer when he was on there, which reminds
oh,
me,
good.
that was funny when you confronted Richard Spencer in the street. He was so annoyed. I'm glad oh, that guy's a punk,
Oh,
dude. I don't,
I have some other
huh?
video from that day where he was trying to threaten me, saying he's going to call the police on me. I said, "You can't. This is a public area. Doesn't
Free
work like that,
speech.
man." Yeah, I mean, all that talk about freedom of speech and what kind of rights we all have that you do for yourself applies to me too. But I was
Yeah, and
messing with a whole bunch of people that day. There was James O'Keefe was there. I was causing him grief. There was this guy named Matt Christensen and his side. No, actually he was the sidekick, and this girl Rebecca Hargraves who was there associated with Spencer, and Nathan Domingo who was from Identity Europa. And to this day, they try to pretend that they're not white supremacists and all that.
oh man,
And oh man, I had a ball with them. I mean, I had a ball with all of them. They always think they get the better of me because they say all the talking points and they stamp their feet and throw the little temper tantrums. It never really works because they're lying.
they lie all the time.
Yeah, I mean, the moment you feel you have to lie, I got the edge. We all do. So, but hey, but that's how they want to roll. So I just keep rolling them.
That Nathan
And
Domingo guy, I thought he was in jail for hitting that woman. I mean, like, they
nah,
got a picture of him.
he's not going to jail for that. He's not going to
Oh,
jail for that because, for one reason. That woman is an anarchist. Anarchists don't call cops.
wow.
And that's the only reason why he doesn't get locked up now. He could have gotten locked up for it. But let's face it, we don't trust the system. We don't trust the system to do right by us in any size, shape, or form. So why are we going to call the police?
Which brings up another question. And I want to come back to even some of the guys that we're talking about. How would you define anarchism and anarcho-socialist versus anarcho-capitalist? And what would you say a real anarchist is? Because some anarcho-capitalists will accuse you guys of
So
being fascist, and for me, an anarcho-capitalist, a lot of them can be kind of on some alt-right type crap. How would you define anarchism in the truest sense? I'm curious.
in the truest sense, I mean, we'll be here forever. I mean, because everybody seems to have their own definition of anarchism, which
Yeah.
actually is the definition of anarchism. So, uh, but I just basically look at it. My friend Jenny once said that basically being an anarchist means you don't respect the authority that doesn't deserve to be respected.
Mm,
Yeah, I mean, and that can be subjective. So
yeah.
it all depends on who you are. Now, when you start talking about the anarcho-fascists, also known as anarcho-capitalists or libertarians,
Yeah.
and I talk about, and when I say libertarians, I mean today's libertarians, the libertarians that basically gave rise to libertarianism. I don't put them in this category.
Mm,
Um, but when you start talking about them, you basically are talking about fascists. They're just using anarchism or libertarianism to hide behind, saying that we're just for liberty, our liberty.
mm.
We believe in the liberty to discriminate against you. We believe in the liberty to create an ethno state. I mean,
Yeah, like that Steve Malin fool,
contradicting
Steve
themselves in
Molyneux,
many
whatever the hell
respects.
his name is.
Say again?
That's Steve Molyneux. I call him Steve Malin fool.
Yeah,
That
and he's a perfect example of that. These characters think that they're fooling everybody. I mean, these are the guys who try to play the plausible deniability game, and it doesn't work. But it doesn't. But it works so long for them, so long as they throw a temper tantrum and scare everybody away. I don't scare easy. A lot of Antifa don't. Matter of fact, none of Antifa scare easy. We know you're lying. We know you're lying, and we're going to tell everybody you're lying.
so as far as like Antifa, I had a question. When I posted a bunch of stuff that had to do with Charlottesville, and I know like a few of your guys is, kind of like that one guy, I forgot the brother's name. He was hit in the head. He got jumped on after, but people were saying they were blaming him for it, not realizing that he was actually protecting someone else. And I heard he's actually going to court or something like that. What was your whole take on Charlottesville? Were you there? I know Antifa was there, and I've heard stories where a lot of these alt right like Nazi guys were actually trying to break in this one church, and a lot of the Antifa guys basically were shielding a lot of the people. They were protecting the people from them. What was that whole? I mean, were you there, or did you have friends that were there? Or
I wasn't there for that, but I was in Charlottesville. We was actually on our way down, and apparently the Nazis thought that they were going to go after everybody in the church, and Antifa just basically just said, "No, you're not." Um,
see, you don't hear that on the
and so
news. I
what
mean,
I did see when I got down there, here's what happened. When I was in Charlottesville, everything was pretty cool in Charlottesville for a little while. I mean, we had a few people yelling and screaming, a few scuffles here and there, but it wasn't until the so-called Nationalist Front or whatever, the Nationalist Coalition, or basically the National Socialist Movement, started shoving around the clergy the next day. And we said, no, you're not going to do that. And that's when the wrestling matches began. We just basically made sure that everybody was safe, or we tried to make sure that everybody was safe. But that meant that people were going to be battling.
man, those guys are. I mean, a lot of that stuff is so sly. It's people don't realize. It's funny. I listen to this guy Jason Black occasionally, and he was going over all the stuff that and I guess he was there and talking about all the symbols and how these people have refined into so many different groups. The one thing that, and I have a fellow friend. I'm hoping that he drops in. You might even know him. Some of these guys, like I found out about even through what my friend kind of does too. People like the Traditional Workers Party, that Matthew Heimbach and Parrott group, they don't
Yeah,
realize
the
people
group
don't
that
realize
really
how much
started the
these
stuff
guys
in
are
Charlottesville.
infiltrating a lot of things. Oh, I'm sorry, what was that?
Yeah, I mean, TWP was the group that started really started the violence in Charlottesville. They were part of that crew,
Bunch of
and they
thugs.
also started some nonsense in Shelbyville, Tennessee, a couple of months later. They
Wow.
are a violent group, and
They
it always kills me when people talk about Antifa being violent and all this. When you have Matthew Heimbach and company engaging in violence, when you have a guy named Gavin McInnes who starts something called the Proud Boys, whose more or less mission is to involve themselves in political violence. And this guy, oh, by the way, and this guy's from Canada. All right. He's an
that was the guy
immigrant to
that
this
did
country.
Vice, right? Gavin
Yeah.
McInnes. What
Now,
an
my
idiot.
thinking, yeah, very much so, because my thinking is if you are, if we were anyone else, if anyone else that was an immigrant started a group that was engaging in political violence, he would have been sent back.
Yep.
McInnes needs to be sent back. I'm not even going to ask to complain about the double standard. We'll make it a single standard. McInnes needs to be sent back.
Yeah, that's not cool. I mean, it's weird. Speaking of violence, here's a question. I'm gonna read a few of the comments. Shoot, I didn't bring my glasses, but I'm gonna try to see the comments.
Hi, Karen.
Hey Karen, he's Daryl's the man. Yes, yes he is. Karen says boycott the department. Oh my gosh, I should have worn
Boycott,
my.
diversity, and sanctions.
What was that? I'm sorry.
Basically, what she's talking about is that Israel is engaged in an apartheid state when you see what they're doing to the Palestinians, and there's an effort to basically treat Israel as the apartheid state vis-a-vis South Africa. That's
That's
what that
evil.
is.
Well,
BDS is,
they supported that apartheid in South Africa back in the day too. A lot of people don't know that. You know that, right?
well, I'm new to that myself, but the thing is, I would tell you that something I don't. I mean, my issue is that I mean something's going to be resolved in that area of the country at some point. I mean, I don't think the West is going to resolve it. I think the people that are living there are going to be the first and foremost people to do it. And Palestinians are stepping up. We're going to see what happens. We are going to see what happens in that part of the country,
Yeah, that's totally
part of the
unfair.
world.
You know, when it comes, I mean, they're kicking the people out of the country. You know, but it's as far as violence, this is something that I wanted to ask. Do you see, would you say that there's a huge connection between these school shooters and all this like sort of neo-fascist or like alt-right type stuff going on? I mean, you got Jared Taylor talking about all this stuff and like people like Dylan Roof being influenced by him and the like of like Matthew Heimbach and all those guys. Is there a clear connection with that? Do you think so? Or
Always been clear. It's always been clear. That's one of the reasons why, if not the reason why Antifa is so hardcore against them.
yeah,
Because it's not just the so-called alt-right. Remember, I mean, alt-right is just basically the neo-Nazis,
yeah,
just a little bit cleaned up. I mean, and the neo-Nazis were engaging in violence for years upon years. I mean, we can always talk about the terrorism of the Ku Klux Klan over the past 100
yeah.
years, but
Mm-hmm.
just over the past 20 years, we'll kill ourselves trying to find out, trying to run down the list of domestic assaults and murders and vandalism and the like that has been that people from that element has engaged in. Just over the past year alone, we've seen so much going on with that. I mean, you talk about this recent shooting in Florida in Parkland. At first, everybody was saying that he was a white supremacist. I'm still of the mind that he was.
Oh, it's obvious to me.
I, what makes it obvious to me is the fact that they were talking about it initially. The WPs themselves, white powers, the they were the ones that were saying that he was part of their group. Once the heat was on, they stopped saying that. They said, "Ah, we trolled you. We fooled you." No, it don't work like that. It does not work like that. Truth be told, you got freaked out when everybody started looking at y'all harder. And when you look at groups like the Republic of Florida and you see what they're about, they tell you flat out they're about engaging in violence. They believe in a violent means to their end.
Wow.
So even if Nicholas Cruz wasn't a member of the Republic of Florida is still an organization that we got to keep an eye on before someone else from that group or someone from that group does actually go out and cause somebody harm. And there's a
I got in.
lot of people on that side like them.
Hmm. Some people like I got into this conversation with a high school friend of mine. I wish she was watching this, and she was upset because I wasn't too happy about the situation. And she's like, well, how could you just call him a white supremacist? I'm like, look, this is a pattern that I've actually observed looking at all these shooters. It seems like a lot of them are connected with these groups. Even that shooter in Texas, you know, the guy, of course, Dylan Roof, the dude, Elliot Rogers, it's coming out that he had some connections with these. And even if they didn't, it's just the ideology that these people spread. It's poison. And it's funny how one hand they're kind of trying to become a part of the mainstream to make it look like it's so normal. And it's almost like, I don't blame you guys for pushing back as hard as you are. You know, it's just really trying to be like make themselves look so normal. I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, my feeling is this: if this dude was a Muslim, if Nicholas Cruz said Allahu Akbar while he was shooting, all these right wingers that are trying to play games with what he was about, and also trying to discourage people from finding solutions to the problem, they would have had solutions. They would have reckoned. They would have said, "Okay, this is an act of terrorism. Let's start putting the pressure on
Yep.
this particular group. Start putting pressure on all Muslims once again." Well, same rules got to apply,
They're
and
doing that with
we
a
don't.
lot
We
of black
don't.
folks, like they did with Raheem Balagun. I don't even. I mean, shoot, the dude's in jail basically for a post, but yeah, the whole
Mhm.
black identity extremist thing. I mean, they do it with us. Why don't they do it with them? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Well, my attitude is I don't think we should be waiting for them to actually come around because there's a reason why they don't. This is what they want to do. They want to harm much of this country. I mean, it kills me to think that Cliven Bundy, for example, who
Yep.
broke the law, didn't want to pay his taxes. And when the police came to get him, in this case, federal agents, he built an army to basically protect him and his land.
Hmm.
He had sniper positions on cops all over all over his area in Nevada. Um, Controlled the flow of traffic on their public road
Man,
around their ranch, and they eventually got arrested. But the
wow. I didn't know he did all that. I knew that they had a standoff, but man, yeah, it's
yeah,
it's so weird. Like it's like almost it's definitely a racist system to be honest. That's my opinion, you know, because if he could get away with doing that, and then you got Raheem posting whatever he posted, and then Raheem gets locked up, and I think he just had a trial where he got sentenced. I don't know what it was. The whole black identity extremist thing. I mean, look at what happened with Gavin Long and Micah Johnson. Not that I'm praising what they
mhm.
did, but they took care of them real quick. They got. I mean,
But let's take it.
it's just like you got
But
to
let's
be
take it
kidding,
to another
really?
level. But let's take it to another level. The fact of the matter is, we'll get shot dead by the cops for having a busted tail light.
Exactly.
I mean, we don't have to do a thing. A Kai Gurley in Staten Island, I believe it was just turning the corner. The cop shot him. No provocation whatsoever. That cop did get convicted, but he got probation.
That's a damn shame. It's just wrong. And I'm
So
surprised that Walter Scott even got. I mean, his got kind of avenged. I mean, they're probably going to reduce. What's that evil dude's name that shot Walter Scott? Um, oh man, the one that planted
he's
the
a
gun
cop.
on him.
No, I remember all of that, but he's going to jail. He's going to
Yeah,
jail. He's done.
I'm
But
surprised.
but one of the things I would always tell people is that it's not so much the cops in these cases too, but it's more or less the conservatives, the right wingers that keep on pushing these bad cops, making excuses for them all the time, trying to make us to be the ones that are in the wrong when a bad cop hurts or kills us. Like I mean, I think about Don Imus's producer, um, Bernard McGurk, always talking about how if you comply, you won't die. And I love how they always use those kind of terms. Comply, submit. They say, I mean, Ted Nugent was talking about submit, um, obey. I mean, you hear all of this coming from them when they talk about what we should do when it comes to the police. And incidentally, I thought it was pretty funny. I went to go see Black Panther for the second time this evening, and I'd never seen this before, but there was a kind of like a commercial before the movie,
Hmm.
um, explaining to people how to act when you're pulled over by the police. It was produced by police law enforcement,
Yeah,
and I'm like, for this movie, this is the very first time I ever seen a commercial like that.
that's a damn
So
shame.
meanwhile, here comes a guy like Clive and Bundy who did none of that. I mean, and went above and beyond doing none of that. And he's meeting with senators, and he's getting props by those same conservatives who think they can lecture us. And he walks out of the courtroom with the charges dismissed.
I don't
What
get that.
happened?
I mean, it just shows me, to be honest, the kind of system we live in. To be honest, and I have to say it is a white supremacist system. I'm not demonizing all white people because not all white people are down with that. But at the same time, it's just like this is the system that we live in, and it needs to seriously. I mean, that needs to go. It needs to be done
It will
away with.
go. It
Hmm.
will go because one thing about black people in particular is that we don't complain just to hear ourselves talk. I
No.
mean, conservatives often like to play that game about how we're always playing the victim role. No, we're not.
Nope.
We're playing the warning role.
Exactly. Oh, yeah, you're right.
Leave us alone. If you can't, we're going to leave you to yourself and take all of this over. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, I know a lot of people are not fans of Barack Obama, but that was a barometer.
Hmm.
That was a barometer. We basically pushed him to the forefront, and we can push more of us to the forefront. Um, there's a lot of us out there that are now running for this in the midterm elections, and they're not going to be too comfortable with that. I mean, right now there's a female, black female, who's running for the governor of Georgia. Now,
Huh.
now everybody's looking at that particular race as well as other races around the country. But she's probably she's in the primary with a white woman, and I think she's going to win. And what a game
Man,
changer that's going to be.
shoot,
You
just as
can't
long
keep
as she
picking
doesn't,
fights with
long
blows.
as she like addresses like the issues, man, that's the problem that some people had with Obama. Like a lot of black society was just thinking that he didn't really like bat for us when it came to like a lot of these laws that are criminalizing us. It's
Right. I
and
mean, and that's one of the reasons why I said that, regardless of how you may feel about Obama or any black politician or any politician that's supposedly supposed to be on our side, the one thing that you have to look at it as is a barometer. It's
mm,
not going to be so much about that person. It wasn't about Barack Obama. It isn't even about Donald Trump. It's about who we are. It's about what we're going to do and what that indicates we're going to do. So
truth.
even if you do not like the person in power, and I'm an anarchist, I'm not supposed to. Even if you do not like the person in power, um, it indicates what kind of power you might have. That
Mm,
might just be your cue. So you have to take whatever that says we're doing and build on it.
mm,
Barack Obama was never meant to be the end all be all. We knew he wasn't going to be the end all be all. But what we have to do, and what we had to do then, and what we still have to do now, is more or less assert ourselves. Whatever it is we're
or-
looking to do, now it's time to do it,
mm,
because it shows that we have allies who would allow for a black man to become president of the United States, and also it's a shot across the bow to those who have been trying for generations upon generations that their day is done, and they're going to fight that. We see them fighting that. That's how come Trump is president now. So it's now about us. It's now, this is what we are going to have to use to advance ourselves. So it doesn't matter who's in power. Well, I mean, it doesn't matter who's in power or what they're going to do. It matters what we're going to do.
I like that. That's like the spirit of autonomy, like that's and a lot of times I'll say like, yeah, I believe in black empowerment, but I also believe in black autonomy when it comes to even just black issues, when it comes to just things that, I don't believe in separatism and all that crap, but autonomy is just what you're talking about. Yeah, I got that from some anarchist type stuff, but that's very inspirational, like because it's like, and I like the fact that you're being positive even with all this climate that's going on, man, because it seems pretty heavy right now, like just people are feeling emboldened to just be a bunch of freaking bigoted idiots, and I'm glad that I have a lot of friends on my page that are not into that, obviously. But it's so cool to hear something positive and just saying, "Hey, it's gonna get better." We're not gonna let that happen. I mean,
But
who are your
look at it this
heroes?
way.
What's that?
Look
I'm
at it
sorry.
this way. It's been worse. It's been worse. Right
Yeah, it has.
now, I mean, if they had this technology where we're talking back and forth right now, probably about 50 years ago, we would have been shut down about 5 minutes before the broadcast.
Hmm. Yep.
There would have been somebody carting me off in the background.
shoot,
We probably
COINTELPRO.
would not be alive right now with some of the stuff that we talk about. I mean, we talk about how today about how angry conservative white conservative America is, but they're mad because they lost the power that they used to have.
Mm,
And back then, when they had the power, oh boy, what did they do with it?
mm,
I mean, you think about what our forefathers and foremothers had to deal with back in
yeah.
the day. Compare it to what we have to do. We're just doing heavy maintenance right now. We just got to fine tune the things that we had. I'm just plugging up my phone here. We're just fine tuning the things that they have already put in place and make sure that it's still working
Yeah,
while
we
trying
a
to
lot of us
build on that. So
have kind of lost it though, like with that. Do you think a lot of us have kind of lost our way with that to some degree? You know, some people will
yeah,
say the new generation has too. I don't know.
there's always going to be a case of us losing our way of, or to be more precise, trying to figure out how do we go forward. But we haven't lost our way so much that we cannot find our way back, or at least
Mm,
find another path if that way back isn't the right way anymore. So I'm not too worried about that. I mean, I think that what you're seeing now over the past 20 years, and I'm gonna bring up why I say 20 years because I'm going to be talking about the political process again, is that I think that people realize that things have become so stable over the past 150 years. And of course, it allowed us to evolve and all that. Things that have become so stable that we kind of don't feel we need to fix anything.
huh.
And
So what?
and this is where I talk about with the political process. Over the past 150 years, the only thing we've seen run for office are Democrats and Republicans. I mean, just looking at it like that. 20 years ago in November would have been is going to be the anniversary of when Jesse Ventura became governor of Minnesota. He wasn't a Democrat or a Republican. And ever since
Yeah.
then, we've been trying to do things that bucked the traditional political process. The
Huh.
2000 election, for example, gave us Ralph Nader, or the mess that they had after the election. Um, 2008 gave us the first black president. And for what it's worth, 2016 gave us the first person to become president that's never had any kind of government experience whatsoever. I mean, he's just straight out of a world that didn't have anything to do with government.
Huh.
He's never been a senator. He's never been an appointee to anything. He was just Donald Trump, a billionaire. I know billionaire makes a difference, and that's really the only thing I can give Donald Trump, to be honest with you. But that is significant.
Yeah, that's a trip. It's it's a trip to even to think, you know, this cat like is the president, but just his administration is just like you got to be kidding, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
are you serious? Like, you know, you had Steve Bannon, you got Jeff Sessions, all these dudes, all of these cats have really horrible backgrounds when it comes to especially racial type stuff, man. Like,
Well, it's
I
a
don't know. I
Hail
mean,
Mary for them. It's a Hail Mary for them. You're talking about people who were really freaked out when Obama became president. I mean, I said this in a documentary. They were the first generation to let this happen, and they didn't know what to do after that did. So now they're trying to right the ship, and now the ship is sinking thanks to how they tried to do it. So
huh.
guess who's going to have to fix things? Us, all of
Mm,
us. So I mean, they're still fighting, and they will lose because one of the things that they are trying to do is break up the United States. I mean, you're talking about a bunch of people who do not believe in this country anymore. That's one of the things that came out of Charlottesville. They kept on saying, well, the country is broken. There's no use to try to save it. There's too many people that ain't us anymore on this in the country. And we're just going to have to move on. I mean, you got, and if you think that's just hyperbole or rhetoric, bear in mind that the guy who founded PayPal, Peter Thiel, is building an island that's offshore, building an island. so that people can live away from the laws of the United States. Now, this guy has complained about democracy in the past. So to give it's not some sort of conspiracy theory for me to say what I just did. They are actually ticked off that the United States has become a lot more open than they would prefer. Some are even moving to Russia now because Russia is not like that anymore. It's not like that. I mean, I know some of the white supremacists who have moved to Russia because it's a fascist state now.
Yeah,
So,
I had an African friend tell me he grew up there. He speaks Russian and he speaks Igbo. And he was telling me,
mhm.
man, all the stuff that he went through. I'm like, how did you deal with that, man? Like, just seriously fighting all the time, like all these bigoted, like Nazi type people. That's crazy.
It is what it is, but that's what's going on in Russia. They want to try to bring it here. They're not going to bring it here. They know that we are not going to allow them to go forward. If they could do what if they could, they would have broken up this country a long time ago. Why do you think they push more so for neo-Confederacy than they do for the United States itself?
That's the funny part
Because
about that. It's such a hypocritical thing because these people, first of all, you see them like repping the Confederate flag and repping these like swastika flags, two things that are pretty much losing. I mean, they lost the war, and it's just like,
it's
okay,
ridiculous.
and but they say that they're patriotic. Really?
Well, one of those groups, well, the League of the South definitely is not, and one of their slogans back in the day was, "If at first you don't succeed, try again." So pretty
Insanity.
witty, but still.
Insanity. Which brings up another weird question. It's kind of along the same lines. Now, you have a whole element of these people that are involved in like oh, before we do that, there's a few comments. I'm sorry, guys. Thank you guys for joining us. I didn't mean to ignore any comments. I forgot. Um, Holly says, "Hi, Holly. People, people, the Jack. I don't know why I didn't wear my glasses. Sorry,
People like
Jack.
Jack Kingston. Jack
Who is
Kingston
that?
is a former congressman who is amazed that these kids are trying to build a nationwide march for gun control. Something I'm
Huh?
not really big on gun control, but I am very big on trying to do something to solve the problem of all these mass school shootings. So yeah, we're
Yeah.
going to have to do something. Um, but we got to come to the table. Jack Kingston wants to try to pretend that these kids don't have much to say or are not, or more to the point, they're trying to suggest that it is outside sources, outside, people who are not students or just political activists with an agenda who are piping in or coaching these kids to advance themselves politically and all that, which is ironic because this weekend we have the Conservative Political Action Conference in Washington, D.C. going on, where they're doing just that
Huh?
for right wing college students or right wing high school kids. So, I mean, that's basically what CPAC is all about, is to basically coach and train activists on their side, particularly young people.
They're
That's
really
how the
trying.
so-called alt-right came to fruition, through
Wow.
CPAC in many respects. In many respects, I should say.
They really are trying to push this stuff into the mainstream, and it's dangerous because you have a lot of people that they're really just trying to make it seem normal to have these
Because it
sentiments.
used to be. Because it used to be. And it's not normal anymore. And they want to renormalize everything. Unfortunately, there's too many of us that telling them, no, you will not.
And then they use the education and like I was gonna mention the intellectual side of it, so-called intellectual. You got
Yeah,
people
I was
like
getting,
Jared
for lack of a
Taylor
better term,
quoting,
man.
huh?
For lack
What's
of a
that?
better term.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can call. I don't know if I can call what Mike Chernovich does as intellectual, or Jesse or Jesse Lee Peterson for that matter. I'm
Oh
not looking at
Lord,
him as
that
an
dude.
intellectual.
I swear that guy's like. I think he's. I thought Wally George was. I got that Wally George vibe from that dude, man. You know how Wally George is kind of like just. kind of trolling the media with all that conservative BS that he was throwing. I mean, I like
He
the
is. I mean, I keep thinking that he is, but there's just but the one thing about him that I don't like is the fact that he rails against anti-domestic violence laws. He believes that it's
what?
okay for you to beat women.
That's some crazy
I mean,
stuff. He better
remember
not be
a
using
book
that.
20
He'll try to use
remember
the
the book
Bible
20
and
years
stuff like
ago?
that. It's like we don't believe that. I mean, you know, I don't as a Christian believe in that at all. I mean, shoot, I believe it. That's just crazy.
You know, he asked me if I was a Christian. I said yes, I am, and then he just started complaining about me after I got off the air about me not being a real Christian or something like that. And I'm just sitting
No,
there
you're
going,
probably more of a real Christian than he is. He's on some white supremacist bow down type thing. I don't get that. It's like, okay,
I
you
think
claim to be a Christian, but yet you're judging people for having like babies out of wedlock. You're, you know, talking about like I didn't, man, that's crazy. What the hell's wrong with that dude, man?
if him saying
Praising a
if him going after babies out of wedlock was the worst that he was about, then but this guy just basically an apologist for white supremacy, and
yeah, he's
to the
like a
point that
Uncle Ruckus. He's the biggest
yeah,
Uncle Ruckus, man.
yeah, he's just like Uncle Ruckus. He's a cartoon.
That's so bad. Like I mean, I just like I had to. I'm not gonna lie. I've been on his videos, man. I've had it out with people because I'm just calling him a devil. You know, like I'm like this dude's a freaking devil. Forget this fool.
Hey,
So,
listen, I'm gonna have to depart in a bit, but
well, I
so
wanted to see if any of the audience wants to ask you any questions, and I was gonna talk about like a few things, but anybody have any questions? Karen, I'm so sorry. I missed a few of your comments and my glasses. It's bad. I see Brandon Brado. What's up, man? Or Brandon Bricks. Um,
hello, Karen again. I'll see you in a couple of days.
man, this is so cool. I really
Karen
so
is a
on a,
friend of mine.
that's so cool. Nice to meet you, Karen. Thank you for even coming through. This is so cool. Like I wanted to ask you this for sure. Um, it's kind of like on some other stuff, but who were your heroes? Like, who were the people that you looked up to that made you even want to start doing what you're doing? Because to be honest, you're very heroic, man. I ain't gonna lie. What you're doing is heroic, and I'm sure you probably get a lot of threats.
Yeah, that's why I have the 380 on standby. But
I heard that.
um, but obviously my parents are going to be in the forefront of that.
Hmm.
But beyond that, I always look. Dick Gregory, may he
Hmm.
rest in peace. I mean,
Yes. Hmm.
Dick Gregory from back in the day, when he got caught up in the conspiracy theories of now, that turned me off. But I'm not going to discount the bulk of his life. I mean, so yeah, Dick Gregory's there. Whoopi Goldberg's a good one too, by the way.
Huh.
Yeah, because Whoopi, when I was in the Air Force, and there was a lot that I was trying to decipher, as trying to figure out in regards to how do I get through life as a black man. And you're talking about 1987, 88, and that was just when Public Enemy was blowing up.
Yeah.
Spike Lee Spike Lee only had School Days at that point.
Hmm.
Um, and the only black comedian that you saw on television was Eddie Murphy. So I mean, and I loved Eddie Murphy, but I knew that there was more that we needed to address, more that was going on. I looked at Whoopi Goldberg as somebody who was trying to do something, a departure from the norm of how you generally view black people. She was doing something vastly different than what you're used to seeing black people do.
Huh.
Remember, when she was out there wearing dreadlocks, no one else
Yep.
was.
That's true. That's true. And she was
So,
one of the first people that I've seen, comedians that I've seen with
mhm,
dreadlocks. You know,
right.
like
So,
seriously.
I mean, that alone made me say, okay, maybe I should start paying closer attention to her. And it's like, I mean, there's pictures of her at this time. She was in the 30s. She was smoking. Eddie Murphy didn't smoke, drink, or did any drugs. I mean, that clean Negro kind of thing. And again, I don't have any issues with Eddie Murphy, but this idea that you had to be on your best behavior or something like that when you're black and in the public eye kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And here
Hmm.
comes Whoopi Goldberg not doing that. But
Wow.
then what really got me was that I bought a CD of hers, or rather bought a tape of hers, called Fontaine Why Am I Straight? Which was Fontaine was her character that was a heroin addict with a PhD. And and Fontaine was getting himself cleaned up, and he's starting to recognize that there were some weird things that were going on. To this day, I quote a lot from that tape, and it was also coming from her HBO special, and it pretty much was one of the reasons, one of the things that I go to I whenever I go forward. I mean, so outside of my family, the two people who I looked at towards for some sort of inspiration were black comedians,
That's a
namely Dick
trip.
Gregory and Whoopi Goldberg, and so much that she has done since still informs me as to where I'm going in the future. So,
Wow. What do you see yourself like in the future? Just, I mean, I'm curious. And I was gonna also mention for all you guys that don't know, Darrell also was into music. He had his own video show and all that. He's an old punk rocker like myself. Um,
mm-hmm.
Skinhead thing too. Real
Very
skinhead
close.
thing, not
Look,
the
sitting here
bonehead
looking for
crap.
things. Yeah, because back in the day, I was down with groups like the Bouncing Souls, Inspector Seven. There was also not just the punk contingent, but the funk contingent that was going on in New Brunswick, New Jersey at the time. So you
Oh wow.
had like bands like Fried Ice Cream, whose guitarist went on to play with John Legend, and is
Mm.
one of my favorite songwriters. His name is Sharif Hobley. Um, there's like Melvin McKnight and the band New Breed. I mean, there's so. I mean, a lot of these bands that I mentioned right now, you won't know because they never got signed. But they were the bands that I loved in the '90s. The bands that you got to know, the bands that you was able to have fellowship with. They were a part of a community that you were in, and they weren't rock gods or anything like that. But that's what I loved. I loved hanging with people who were doing the right thing musically. It stinks that Gibson is filing for bankruptcy because that
Yeah,
just
I was
says that
bummed. I just
I
found
was
out
like,
about
whoa,
that.
where is that coming from? But but you was asking about what the future was going to hold and where I'm gonna be. And my truth of the matter is, I want my library.
Wow.
I want my library. I want my research library where an archival where a lot of things that I've seen in my life, um, other people can see. I mean, right now everything's stuck in a storage space, and not just political stuff. I'm talking about um, the stuff from arts and culture and music and everything. That's what I'm hoping people can get, but that takes money. That takes
Mm.
money. So we'll see what happens in the next couple of years. Next couple
Yeah,
of years, and
most
see
definitely.
what I'll
What would you say? I know you got a role, so I'm gonna ask you, what advice
see
would
what
you
happens.
give, like just a positive word to cats? Like, what word would you leave with all of us, just as far as like just positive, like advice or just salutations?
Much love to y'all, but it's not as bad as you think. We got this. We got this. I mean, and that's one of the things that they're afraid of. But one of the things that I will most certainly say is that as you go out there and fight, as you go out there and do what you got to do, remember to enjoy your life. Remember to appreciate the things that you're fighting for. Because if you don't do that, you're just a robot.
Mm.
You don't want to be you don't want to be that automaton. You don't want to be that robot. You are fighting because you care deeply about the things that are around you. Appreciate those things. seriously, it'll keep you grounded and it'll keep you happy. That's what I'll
Man,
leave you with.
thank you, Darrell. Did I say your name right? Daryl or Darrell?
Darryl.
Daryl.
Darryl Limont Jinkens.
Darryle Limont Jinkens. Enough respect to you, man. Peace, brother. I really
All right,
appreciate
man.
you, man. Thank you for even doing this, and thank you for your wisdom and sharing all your knowledge and stuff. And hey, give a shout out to Karen. Is it Finnegan? And
Karen
my
Finnegan,
homegirl.
the legend herself.
Oh shoot! Shout out to Rebecca, Precious Lady, um, and our friend Yvette Falarka. Hopefully her situation is better. I just kind of met her
Much love
like,
to her.
via here. And um who else? Um Dorian, I see you. Dorian's actually on the East Coast with you. Therian's on the East Coast too. Rodney Sellers, you know, man, there's a lot of cats in here. Man, Ty, thank you. Mike Michael, um, Ken, oh my gosh, Ken Sayesla. I cannot
Celestia,
say that. How do you say it?
69.
69.
he was yo, he's one of the cats from my old days, from my old music days.
Wow.
Yeah, he used
Man,
to be in a lot of bands. One band was this glam rock band called 69 Licks. I think if Ken's still here, I don't know if he's still here, but I think he was in a band called Hello Dalai Lama. Um, I mean, he was all over the New Brunswick scene, and he's still hardcore now. I mean, I love him. I saw him just a couple of months ago. I mean, just before Christmas, and he's definitely good people.
man, that's so dope. That's so cool. Shoot, man. Well, man, I really appreciate this. And thank you for even inviting your friends like Ken and oh my gosh, Karen. I'm bad with names. Oh my gosh. Um, man, I'm like I'm like totally just like missed. Um, shoot, man. Well, this is Odd Talks, Odd Cast, and thank you, Daryl.
Thank you.
And I will talk to you another time. Anything you want to say to the audience before we roll?
God bless y'all. Soft answer turneth away wrath, but grievous words stirreth up anger. Remember that one.
I like that. That's some scripture right
Proverb.
there. Yep.
Take care, y'all.
Peace. God bless.
Praise